focus on the kick and snare of this drum mix. Okay, this is the SSL 4000E. It has been one of the most popular mixing console out there. It has been used by pro mixing engineers such as Andy Wallace, Chris Lord-Alge, his brother Tom Lord-Alge, just to name a few. It also has been emulated by several plugin companies. It's known for its big punchy sound with a rich analog character. And it has this crazy feature that I'm going to show you in just a moment. Now the SSL 4000E plugin emulation version I'm going to work with in today's video is the one made by SSL themselves, which is perfect. First of all, it looks good, sounds great, and it's easy to work with. But I'm going to give you a quick look at other versions also as I go throughout this video. Now note that this is not a sponsored video and also not a review on the SSL version of this emulation. So most of the parameters and features of the 4000E that I'm going to cover in this video are for the most part available on most SSL 4000E emulation plugins. So what we have with this emulation plugin is basically the replica of a channel strip found on the channel of an SSL 4000E console, which will be divided into 5 sections or 5 zones. There is the input zone, the output zone, which are static, okay? Then there's the filters, the high pass and low pass filters. There's a 4-band EQ, so the EQ zone, and the dynamics, which will include a compressor and a gate. When it comes to the signal flow, it's going to go first, again, through the input zone, which in this case is going to be in the top center, which will include an input trim and also, in this case, a preamp that you can activate, okay, which will add a bit more saturation and nice harmonic distortion, which is pretty cool. We're going to look this up when I'm going to use this one on the bass, which is going to be pretty useful. And the amount of level you want to get into the plugin itself with the input trim. Then it's going to depend on the order I set up the SSL 4000 at. I think by default it's going to go straight into the dynamic section, and then to the EQ section and filters, or the filters first and EQ, but you can switch that around. At the bottom right, I have the signal flow order, okay, between the EQ, filters, and dynamics. So if I want my filter to go first, which is usually the case, I'm gonna bring that up, and now the way it's set up at the moment, the signal after going through the input section will go down to the high pass and low pass filters. And then the EQ, in my case, I want my signal to go through the 4-band EQ, and then I'm gonna jump into compression and a gate that will follow. If I want my compressor and gate to go first before the EQ, there you go, I'm just gonna switch that around, and I'm good to go. Very simple. Now, on other plugins, when we look at the layout of an SSL emulation plugin, let's look at the Plugin Alliance version, which is also a very, very good emulation. The filters are same as the SSL version on the top left. Then there's the dynamic section with the compressor and gate, and we have in the center the 4-band EQ, and on the top right the input zone and the output at the bottom right. And to switch the order of things, I can bring my EQ strip pre-dynamic or leave it to post-dynamic if I want to, okay? So this is a very simple way to switch things around on this version of the 4000. Now, if we look briefly at the UAD version, the input section is going to be on the top left, and then the dynamics, the 4-band EQ, and the output section, and the filter is going to be at the bottom left. And to switch things around, same here, we looked at the SSL. I click on pre-dynamic at the bottom of the EQ strip, and my EQ strip is going to go before my compressor and gate. Now, quick disclaimer for this UAD version, it's linked to the DSP, you know, satellite system I have on my end. And at some point, I wish UAD will make this version of the 4000 native, you know, with the UAD Sparks or something. It would be so cool. And if they do so, UAD, you know, maybe you should tweak around the GUI, which looks a bit confusing and small, and yeah, I don't like the workflow, but it sounds great though. It's a great plugin. But there you go. Now let's go back to the SSL version and move on. High pass, low pass filters. Then let's talk about the 4-band EQ. We have the highs, where we have a boost and attenuation knob. We also have, of course, the frequency selection, and we can switch the EQ curve to a bell curve, or if I deactivate the bell curve button, now it's going to go to a high shelf. Then we have the high mids. It's going to be a bell curve EQ where I have access to tweak the size of the bell with the Q factor, and also, a boost attenuation knob, and of course a frequency selection. And same for the low mids, same type of approach as we have with the high mids. Then the low frequency band will be the same as the high frequency band. Okay, so I have a boost or attenuation knob, and also a frequency selection, and I can switch between a bell curve or a low shelf curve. Okay, so that depends on what I want to do. Now, the cool thing and special crazy feature that we have on the SSL 4000E is in this case, it's 3 different EQ circuits, which is cool. Okay, so let me open a plugin called Burton EQ Curve Analyzer. Very similar to Plugin Doctor, but mainly designed to analyze EQ curves. Okay, and it's free. Okay, so you can check it out. I'm going to leave the link down below if you want to look it up. So this is basic random EQ settings for the purpose of this video, just to show you visually the difference between these different EQ circuits, which is great. Now, there's the brown circuit, there's the black circuit, and those 2 circuits are the ones that are going to be found on most plugin emulations of the 4000E. But there's also the orange circuit, which is based on a passive EQ. And I don't think I found this circuit available on other plugin emulation from other companies than the SSL version. I might be mistaken, let me know if I am, but as far as I know, the SSL 4KE plugin is the only one that will have these 3 circuits on the same plugin, but most of them again will have the brown and black circuit. If we look at the low frequency band knobs, they will be brown, and the color will change with these knobs, and that will let you know in which EQ circuit you are working with. Now, if I look at the Analyzer plugin, this is a visual representation of the curves, the EQ curves I have using the brown circuit. If I switch to the black circuit, look at that. It changes a bit more tight. Now, the slopes for the high pass filters, I think on the brown circuit is set up to 6 dBs per octave, and on the black circuit, it's set up to 18 dBs per octave. This is for the high pass filter slope. And the Q and the EQ curves are a bit more narrow in general compared to the brown circuit. So I'm going to go back to the brown circuit, and there you go. Look at that. So that's interesting, and we'll have a listen. We'll have a listen to the differences between those different curves. And if I activate the orange one, look at that. It's completely different. Let's use our ears and listen to how it sounds like. All right, so let's go back to my kick and snare. Okay, so I have 2 instances of the SSL, one on the kick channel and one on the snare channel. I'm just going to solo those 2 tracks. And now I'm set up to on both of them on, let's go and put them to the brown EQ circuit. That's cool. I like it. Okay, I'm going to bring back the drum mix and do the same thing, okay? Okay, cool. I like that. Now, if I can put some characteristics on each of them, I would say that the brown EQ circuit sounds a bit more smooth, a bit more warm in general. The EQ curves are a bit more relaxed and, you know, a bit more wider compared to the black circuit, which sounds a bit more tight, a bit more clear. There's lots of clarity, a bit more punchy for some reason. And there's a nice low end definition also using the black EQ circuit, funny enough. The orange circuit, yeah, it's a bit hard to describe for me anyways. It sounds a bit darker, you know. Yeah, let me know what you think down below. I'm very curious, but it does sound less defined, you know, less definition for sure. But yeah, a bit more dark, but punchy at the same time. There's a nice bass response using the orange. So anyways, I like the black circuit for the kick and snare. I love the punchiness of the black circuit, love it. So those are the differences in tone between those three different circuits we have on this version of the SSL 4000. On the dynamic section, we have a compressor, pretty straightforward, ratio, threshold, release knob, and for the attack, we have the choice between a fast or a slow attack. Now the slow attack will go up, it's program dependent if I'm not mistaken, and it will go up to 30 milliseconds or so. And fast attack, I think it starts at or in the range of 3 milliseconds or so. Doesn't matter, listen to how it sounds like and mix accordingly to your tracks. If, for example, let's solo these snares. So the fast attack is fast, as you can tell, okay? And it's a very nice VCA type compressor, very good compressor to work with. And the gate slash expander is this one right here. So just to give you an example, I'm gonna solo the snare track, the original snare recording, because what we're hearing right now is the cumulative of my original snare plus a few samples, okay? But if I listened only to the recording of the snare only, and I turn off the compressor and gate, I have some bleed going on. Okay, and just by activating a gate, it, you know, kind of get rid of that, that bleed, and it gives me lots of control. And even if I blend this with some samples, a gate will help for sure. So let's bring back the samples. So this is how the gate sounds like, very simple to use. There's the threshold, the range, and also the release time. And for drums, I kind of like to keep the release time pretty fast, as I do with a compressor. Now on the compressor side, a fast release will keep things a bit more upfront when it comes to compression and leaving way more tail. Okay, opposed to a slower release. Now, if you're a bit confused about compression, I'm gonna encourage you to download my free guide on the fundamentals of compression. The link is down below. Now, the cool thing also about the SSL 4000E is that you can use a sidechain to work with your compressor. It could be an internal or external sidechain. So let's keep it to an internal sidechain. So for example, on this version of the SSL, I can make, like I did for my kick drum, I can make my filters be used as a sidechain to the compressor. What that means is that the compressor will compress the full signal. However, what will be detected by the compressor to activate compression will be decided by my filter parameters. So in this case, everything under 120 Hertz will not be detected by the detection circuit of the compressor. So the compressor will not react to those frequencies to engage compression. It will still compress the whole thing, but it will detect only frequencies above that level that I set up in my filter zone. So that is an internal sidechain, which is gonna make my kick sound way more punchier, okay? So I'm still gonna get good compression, but I'm going to retain the punchiness of my kick without having those low frequencies where on a kick drum has a lot of energy affecting the way the compressor will behave with the amount of gain reduction and the amount of compression it's going to do. And that is pretty common on a lot of compressors, and it's cool that we have that within a full channel strip. And you can also put this to external sidechain and have another source, an external source be the detector of the compressor. Okay, let's test the input section and also the output section, which is also very special. Now on this plugin for the input, we have an input trim and also a mic pre. Now I have the bass guitar right here that I'm going to test this out on, and then the output section also can add some color with this output fader, okay? Now the fader will add a bit more harmonic distortion the more you bring it up. And the cool thing is that we can readjust the output level with the output trim, which is clean, okay? Just to bring down the actual level. So if I bring up a bit more input to the whole plugin, it's gonna affect the way the compressor is gonna react, of course, because it's gonna bring way more signal into the compressor and gate also. Okay, so just pay attention to this. Then if I activate the pre, let's check what that is gonna do. Okay, I'm just gonna tweak around with a few things and we'll see where this is gonna lead us. Okay, cool. So I tried to level match when bypassing the plugin with the output trim. So it gives you a very good idea on how that sounds like. Now, when I bypass the plugin, of course, it's going to bypass the whole thing, you know, compression, EQ and all that stuff, you know, but you can actually have a great idea on how that sounds like in general with this plugin. So I kind of like the input drive with the preamp that we have on this version of the SSL. That works pretty well, and also the output VCA knob, you know, just add a bit more of a color, does work also very well. But what I like the most is to be able to have control over the output level, the clean output level with the output trim. That can be found also on other version of the same plugin. For example, the UAD version also has the output clean level on top of the fader, okay, to add a bit more color, and also has the preamp. Okay, same as the SSL version, but when we look at the Plugin Alliance version, it does work differently. On this one, the output fader, if I'm correct about this, is going to be a clean output basically of the plugin. And to add a bit more color, now there's the THD for tone harmonic distortion that you can add at the input level of the plugin. And there's the V-gain to get a bit more of a analog noise basically, and the input gain. So every plugin emulation of the 4000E will probably have different ways of managing the output and inputs. Okay, so just pay attention to this with your own version of the SSL plugin. Now, I made several other videos talking about vintage type of emulation plugins like the 1176 LA2A, the Distressor, the Pultec EQ, the Fairchild compressor. So click on this playlist if you want to watch other videos part of this same series. And also, I would like to know on your side if you do work with the SSL 4000E plugin. If so, let me know which version you work with, or if you work with any kind of other channel strips, and let me know what other vintage type emulation plugin you want me to cover next. Until next time, take care and see you.